I don't care. We killed it. Yeah, Rhamph OP! Oh, that was magical. Hello. Has everybody got their New Year's resolutions ready and ready to stick to them? I know I haven't. Let's not worry about that right now. Let's get on to what we're doing in this video. So, from my last video looking at the weaknesses of Tyrannotitan with Rhamph, I saw that there was a little bit of confusion on, the time frame of how long it takes to do these things. And I'm getting the impression that people think it takes hours, or, it takes way longer than it actually does to pull some of the stuff off that you can with Rhamph. So I decided to hop on Tyrannotitan myself. Ended up asking my friend Saka to kill me real quick. They got free food. That was cool. Of course, they almost died in the process, but ah well. But all I can tell you right here is for a Tyrannotitan to starve from full food and full water, if it doesn't eat anything, it takes 1 hour. To actually get the proper test, I ended up going into officials and just walked back and forth between Triad Falls and Young Grove, along the back end of it. Because pretty much the map traffic around these areas is next to non-existent, pretty much. But after that, then, I ended up asking my friends on my next live to just start plaguing me with ramps. I didn't buck them off just so that I had the maximum amount of uptime to get a good measurement. But let's just say it only took half an hour, or should I say like 32 minutes, just because, people gotta get stamina, sometimes there can be mistakes. You gotta give a little bit of leeway, right? And just for a little bit of context, because, hey, in the second clip, I could have just sped it up more, just to make it look like I starved faster, right? Well, no, they're both at 64 times speed right now. There's nothing else I can really add on to that other than just, giving you that information and letting you do with that as you please right now. All I can say is the more ramps I see, the happier I feel. Anything to just not see the entire server filled with Apexes the entire time. Everyone has their bias in what they enjoy, and for me it's Rhamph, so I'm gonna spread all the knowledge I can, along with all the fun that I have with it. So, what am I going to do to follow up from my last video? Well, I've got a couple more clips of starving out Tyrannotitans, also with, some extras in the background. And also, a little bit of sneaky shenanigans or information that you can pull off on a hats with Rhamph as well. And with that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So, funnily enough right here, it ends up starting off in the same location as last time, and also in the same predicament as last time as well. At least for this Tyrannotitan. As I hopped on Rhamph, flew over to Salt Flats, and I spotted another Tyrannotitan. And guess what? They were eating salt rocks. And whenever I see this now, I just immediately think, well, they must be desperate enough to need to, feel the need to live on salt. But then again, sitting over in Salt Flats is a good area for them to actually get water as well, because they can also go towards Hoodoo Expanse to the little pond to drink, or they can go to Big Quill Lake. This Tyrannotitan, though, they were quite calm. Well, yeah, way more calm than I would have expected. I think they just knew that as long as they actually had their food full, and then, just ignored me for a while, they could get to the water in time, so they didn't panic. They kind of just kept munching away on all the salt rocks that they could get, really. In which, in my response, I was thinking, you cheeky git, you need to respect my plague, respect it. And thankfully, I did have a salt rock quest, which I was allowed to just take their salt rocks to slow down their food eating. But yeah, this Tyranno, they do pretty much just have it under control right here. As hell, they even just ask me if I'm trying to starve them out after they get to the lake. And also, I gotta be fair, they were very chill about it. They were just laughing at me in the chat, if anything. They found it funny. Though little did either of us know at this point that there was another threat in the area. So they ended up just filling up their water and just headed straight back out to Salt Flats. So they carry on eating the salt, and all I can really do because of how they're acting and being so calm with it is I just start taking the salt rocks and just, dropping them up on a rock, just to slow down their hunger filling as much as I can. But after eating salt rocks, obviously they're losing thirst faster, so it's about getting to the time where they have to go back to drink again. So, while I am pouncing them over by the edge of the water, and making them make a bunch of noise, the threat that I mentioned earlier appears to have caught their attention. It appears to be two Sukos, one an adolescent, and one Big Mama. Let's just say I was quite happy that they were really trying to just stack up as much bleed as they can on this Tyranno as possible. Especially with the fact that I am running Scab Picker, which, let's not forget, once you apply max stacks of it, you end up cutting this Tyranno's bleed healing in half. But I should also mention right here, on top of the plague that I was applying while pounced, it also still ended up having the thirst debuff from the salt rocks, and also the case that whenever you are bleeding on any dinosaur, you lose water a little bit faster. So that is just stacking multiple debuffs for water drain. And I gotta be fair, this was one of the best moves they made. It's just unfortunate, the circumstances that they found themselves in with all the debuffs at the same time, is that they ended up walking away from the water, away from the Sukos. So if they decided to come on land, they'd have a better chance of actually dealing with them. Their real downfall was really just the timing of having a bunch of debuffs on them, reducing their water. So right now, they are dying of thirst really badly, and bleed, since I ended up reducing their bleed healing. Had the Sukos not shown up, they would have been fine, at least I think. But since we are in this situation, they got away from the water and they still have bleed on them, I gotta make sure that they are still keeping that bleed going. But eventually, the need for water is too great for anyone to resist, and they go back for one more attempt. In which, well, you know who's waiting. I'm a little bit surprised that it was the baby that came out first to deal damage and add some bleed. The baby did almost die and I was a little bit worried for it, but thankfully the parent came in and did their job. And with that, now the parent and child can both eat. Sometimes for life to thrive, something must die. And as a side note, this doesn't happen often, but I decided to give the baby the trophy. I don't know if this is a baby, I think it's an adolescent, but either way, they can have it this time, just because they were quite helpful. But either way, I take my pound of flesh, and I'm on my way. And so how about now we move on to Crater, where it's safe to say, as usual, there's so much stuff here, it's ridiculous. It is relatively friendly here, in the point that most of the people in Crater right now are either able to escape or they know each other and have played together. So usually you know how that goes. Whoever starts trouble first is the one who gets jumped, right? Though the rule is, if you are hungry, attack the outsiders first, right? How that Rhamph didn't see that coming, I will never know. My guess is they just didn't look behind them, to be honest. But anyway, the situation that I've seen here in Crater for this clip is that there are a lot of pretty big hitters right here who kind of take a lot of food to actually sustain themselves. You know, things like Sarcos, Spinos, a Tyrannotitan. Yeah, they all take quite a lot of food to actually sustain themselves. But no one's killing anything because most of the people are friendly with each other here. And here was the point where I ended up looking at chat and saw that the Tyranno said that they were pretty close to starving. And my only response that I could think of was, that is what happens when you take a dino that needs a lot of food quite a lot of the time, and then you bring it to an area and just leave it there. And it just sits in one area. It doesn't go searching for food, it just sits there. And sure, people can play how they want, but hey, you're gonna starve. You're kind of asking for it. And the reason for keeping this dino that needs quite a lot of food quite often, well, it's because, all their friends are pretty much also in the crater, so I get it. You want to stay around your friends. But you made this very easy for me. So now my next move is to go around to each salt rock in crater that people usually like to use and dump it. Just to, give them less options to work on. And while I'm dumping the salt, there is a Pycno in the crater, which is not part of the big friend group here. And so it's free game for, any of them in there to attack it just to feed the Tyranno. And well, that is exactly what they tried, and when I saw it, it just told me, hey, this is a good time to start plaguing now. They seem desperate enough to actually want to chase it. And thankfully, Pycnos are very good at actually just running away from everything. And though this Tyranno did get one, chunk of meat, that's all there was on that body. And they were still being plagued and still desperate enough to end up chasing this Pycno pretty much halfway across Grand Plains. All the while still also being patient enough just to let the Rhamphs do their work. But wait, I said Rhamphs, not just me. In which there was about 4 to 5 more Rhamphs around the crater, also trying to help just starve out this Tyranno Titan. And now here is where I actually started to panic a little bit, as a Hats ended up arriving. And the main reason for my panic is that every time I've seen a Hats go for a Tyranno Titan, they always end up pretty much dying. And if this Hats does end up, dying, then all the effort that we're going through right now has been for nothing. As my fears were almost brought to fruition right here, as the Tyranno Titan ended up luring the Hats into an area where there's not really the best amount of movement. And, well, yeah, they almost just died right there. It's always the Hats. They're always way more confident than they should be. They forget that they're made of paper. Thankfully, in this case, they did manage to actually sleep the bleed off, and not feed the Tyranno Titan, which they were way overconfident in dealing with. So, the Tyranno did end up getting back to the pond, and it's just trying its best to try and get away from all the Rhamphs by swimming, which, yeah, that just isn't gonna happen. And the funny part is, as they are getting lower, they're saying, "Someone please help me," but everyone else in the pond are pretty much just kind of on the sidelines going, "You got this, you can do this," and it was really funny to me. Mainly because if something comes along that they can fight, then I'm sure they will go for it so that this Tyranno can eat, but when it comes to dealing with a bunch of Rhamphs like this, all they can really do is hope to have someone bring a flyer to deal with them. And as the Spino is staying near the Tyranno, all the Rhamphs know not to even touch the Tyranno. Just because, hey, you don't want to be having your lucky feather activated. Not when there's still a bit more to go. We should ask this wonderful spectator right here what they think about this entire situation. So, Patchy, how do you feel about seeing Tyrannos get starved out? I think they approve. I love to hear it. So they've gone and positioned themselves in a way that if you pounce the Tyranno, the Spino will bite you. So what do? I just pounce the Spino instead. And I think it's safe to say the Spino does not want the attention from the Rhamphs that the Tyranno is giving. So they kind of just head back into the water. in which I am happy for them to do in this case, because it just gives me space to pounce the Tyranno again. And now at this point, they've told the Tyranno to go eat salt rocks, which is the biggest trap that we have right here. Mainly because I will be working on dumping every salt rock that this Tyranno runs towards. Also, as soon as they eat one, they end up starting a timer for their water, and since I'll be dumping all the salt rocks, there will not be enough water for them to replenish themselves in the first place. At least not without running out of crater up to wilderness to actually get a drink. They do end up spotting one of the Rhamphs on the floor, and going for it immediately. Thankfully, they only just pop their lucky feather, in which they just chill out and fly away, while the rest of the Rhamphs just laugh. So one Rhamph out of the flock has been taken out right now. They'll be back once their lucky feather is out. But that still says nothing for the rest who are still chasing this Tyranno. And let's just say they know exactly what I'm doing in terms of just taking away the salt rocks so that they can't eat them. And also so that they can't replenish the water. Now this part here I actually found really funny in the term that they saw I took the salt rock and started following to where they thought I would drop it. So while the other Rhamphs are still working on plaguing the Tyranno, I'm working on depleting all of the salt rocks that usually the crater groups will go for first, just to slow them down in actually filling up that water, in which the Tyranno is gonna be quite low for. But after doing that, we've come to another little bit of a panic spot for me, as a young Sarco and another Tyrannotitan has entered the crater. But we all know that our Tyranno that we have been giving ever so much attention spotted them immediately and ran over. I'm sure they wanted to just dig in right that second. The only problem I think they had there, though, is that their health was only at half right now. And if they attacked the young Sarco, well, the other Tyranno would have eaten them immediately. So they held off for now, but slowly followed the Tyranno down the hill, almost as if they're best buds. But this is now the time where I got the chance to see how many partners in crime were with me at the time. And safe to say, I was so happy to see this many Rhamphs all working together on the same goal. But now here's where I end up checking the chat, and the Spino said that they can kill the other Tyranno that entered the crater. And I know it won't just be the Spino, it'll be everything else that is on land also trying to kill it. So, we've got to try and help this Tyranno. And I know how it sounds, wanting to try and help one Tyranno, while also trying to starve out the other one. And the difference is how much help each one is getting. So on one hand, we have a Tyranno with a bunch of little birds flying around it. And on the other hand, we have another Tyranno with pretty much the rest of Crater or whatever's on land in Crater to try and help it. Thankfully, this solo Tyranno right here, they just went for it. And the most useful thing to us right here was that they were stacking quite a lot of bleed on the other Tyranno. The part that was worrying me was pretty much everything else that started going for them. And for the sake of, not letting all our work be for nothing, yet again, like with the hats, I am begging this Tyranno to just run. Just run for their life. But thanks to all the bleed that they had stacked up on the Tyranno that we were starving out, I was able to get some good use out of Scab Picker. But after stacking up Scab Picker on them, this is where I went to rest, and I thought I was going to die right here. As a Thal that saw me going to rest went for me right away. And yeah, just one more bite and I would have been gone. I would have been brown bread. And this is all while the lone Tyranno is still trying to fight for their life against the Crater group here. But at this point, the lone Tyranno is looking very, very close to dead. And, well, they do end up killing it. But I am praying at this moment that they ended up stacking up enough bleed on this Tyranno in order for it to be in range to bleed out. And I gotta say, I have good news. And good news, they do just bleed out. In which this certainly calls for a celebration. And yet again, when something dies, life thrives. As pretty much everyone else in Crater had a huge meal of 2 dead Tyrannos. I went and grabbed some food, and then I flew away in order to turn on my microphone. Right. What else can I say other than I am so proud. I am so goddamn proud of all those other Rhamphs. Oh, that was amazing. I salute you. They went a dino that's made to, like, move around and search for food, right? But they've got a huge group in which they've got to share food with. Yeah, they did half the work for us, if anything. That was great. They went a dino that's made to roam around because of its high food drain. And just stayed in one spot, sharing with a bunch of other, sharing their food with other apexes. Oh, I'm so glad to see, like, another flock of Rhamphs. Oh, that was amazing. I'm so proud of them. I know it would sound a little conceited for me to say, but I hope they were viewers of my last video. I really do. I personally, I hope they were people who watched that video and got inspired and decided to try it. I really do. Mate, the only thing that had me worried is that another tyrant came in, right? And they're saying, "Oh, go for the tyrant, go for the tyrant." The random tyrant. And I'm thinking, "Oh god, they're gonna just mob that tyrant, and then they've got food, and then it's all ruined." But thankfully, that random tyrant put a bunch of bleed on them, which allowed me to use my scab picker. Oh, that was magical. Also, that Thal, when it attacked me, that scared the ever-loving hell out of me. Oh my goodness. I thought I was dead right there. I don't know how long that Thal had been going after people, or maybe if they were just, like, trying to save them on a like a last second kind of whim. Or if someone perhaps maybe changed to it to, possibly try and hunt down Rhamphs. In this case. I don't care. We killed it. Yeah, Rhamph OP! Oh, that was magical. Now for what I would call a little bit of a bonus clip. Now, Rhamph isn't just great for countering or starving out Tyrannos. It's also pretty perfect for helping out Tyrannos as well. And this is pretty much mainly because of Scab Picker, which, as we all know, reduces the bleed healing of whatever it's stacked up on by 50%. And as I keep saying, it's always the hats that are way too confident in actually fighting Tyrannos, and they always get punished because of it. For instance, this hat's ended up flying a little too close to the sun, or, was a little bit too confident in fighting Morkrom's Tyranno Titan. And, well, it just ended up getting forced to the ground, and it had no choice but to sleep, which just made it an easy target to just keep it stacked up with Scab Picker. Sadly, I didn't have the replay running at this time, but it did die. And after filling up our food, as we needed, Morkrom ended up going after the other hearts. And though he wasn't able to kill it then and there, because he wasn't able to body block it from running away. He did end up stacking up quite a lot of bleed onto it. Perfect for Scab Picker. But that wasn't really enough, I don't think. And so I had to resort to an old technique that I have not used in a good while. And I thought maybe now is the perfect time to try it. Rhamph, you'll probably remember this. Yep, if you do a little pounce in front of the Hats' flight path, more often than not, it will cause a little bit of collision. And so here we are at the end. This was yet again another very funny one, in my opinion. But please let me know what you think, I would love to know. I have also lately fully grown a Sako on the permadeath server, and I'm working on building up clips for that. But that's not really that important right now. It's about, 18 minutes away from being the New Year's for me right now, so anybody ahead of my time zone already, Happy New Year to you all. To anyone in time zones, behind mine, I wish you a Happy New Year. Let's all try and work towards making 2025 a much better year than 2024. It's also an entirely new year in which we can look forward to the content and updates coming to Path of Titans in 2025. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm optimistic about it. With as much as, Alderaan have done this year with it, yeah, safe to say, it's looking good. But I've rambled on long enough. I hope you all have, or had, or are having a Happy New Year. I hope you all enjoyed. And I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.